But, dear Mark, if only I was there to sing Maggie May or Rhythm of My Heart and have you burst out laughing because I was a Rod Stewart fan. We would talk about politics, music, football, argue, laugh, argue some more, and eat, and then talk about how Shana loved Murphy Lee. See, it doesn't take a million years to recognize good people and family. You were family from day one. When we said we would fight for you, you strapped up those beat up sneakers and said, let's go. I learned so much from you, and I wish I had the chance one more time to tell you what you meant to me and my future. Mark, I couldn't have done half the shit I did without you being on my team and being a part of my family. To everybody in attendance, I ask you to be more like Mark. Ask the hard questions, question everything, love unconditionally, laugh because it's good for the soul. Realize that our smiles often give the world a new light, and we all knew that Mark had a smile that let you know everything was going to be all right. To his family, my heart is with you. To Shana's sister, I love you dearly. Take your time and deal how you deal. We will all be there for you. Love you, Mark. Get your rest. We got you from here. And I would just want to add that Mark was like, I remember the first time meeting him, it was in that campaign office right over there, and the floors were disgusting, flat out. But like Corey said, there was always a stack of papers, just stacks of papers, and it was all data. And Mark, at the time, I was working on the campaign, but I also bartended at propaganda. And Mark and I would just sit at the bar and talk shop all night long, and he taught me so much about running campaigns, about being involved with politics, about policy. And I owe Mark a big debt too, because I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today if it wasn't for Mark. He definitely had a piece of that. And so we love you, Mark, and you're all family, and it's really evident how important he was by all the people that are here today. And you're all amazing people and good people doing good things in the community. And that reflects on what a good person he was. So,
my name is Jesse Irwin. I want to talk about what a dignified person Mark Kustelski was. I'm going to give you some examples. I met his sister Cathrine in the early 2000s in St. Louis, and we became friends. And one day she said, hey, can you come over and help me get a bunch of my brother's shit out of my basement? Like, I'm not storing it anymore. I'm going to throw it all away. So I'm like, okay, Cathrine, let's do it. So I'm sorting through all this stuff, and I know I pull out this piece of clothing, and I know exactly what this is, and it's a West Point cadet's uniform. And I looked at Cathrine and I said, did your brother go to West Point? And she's like just moving boxes around, pissed off. And she goes, 2 of my brothers went to West Point. She's like throwing stuff away. I'm like, are you serious? Like 2 of your brothers went? Yeah, like it's nothing, you know? And I'm like, holy, I've never met anybody in my life that went to West Point, you know? So later on, maybe about a year later, I had told Cathrine I was interested in running for office. And she said, my brother Mark is moving back to town. You got to meet my brother Mark. So we meet in Catherine's apartment, and I talked to Mark Kustelski for about an hour, and he says, I want to help you run for office. Call me when you're ready, and I will accept no less of a position than your campaign manager. And that was Mark. You know, Mark decided the altitude he was going to fly at, and it was his way or the highway. And Mark became my campaign manager, and pretty early on in my campaign, Mark fired me. And Mark had given me some assignments, said I needed to walk and talk to all these people, and it was very difficult for me to knock on doors and just, you know, I'm a 28-year-old person, I'm knocking on doors, and some of these people told me to fuck off and said awful things to me, and it was real hard for me to knock on doors. And I told Mark I hadn't done it, and Mark's like, you know what, I'm out. I'm not doing this. I'm not running your campaign. So then I doubled down. I'm like, oh my God, man, Mark left me. Like, I better get to work. I better go out and start. So I knocked on all these doors, and Mark called me a few days later. I'm like, Mark, guess what I did? I went through this list. I did all this. And Mark told me, he said, hey, I want to come back. I want to work with you. And for the next 3 months, Mark gave me so much of himself and so much of his time. And he was a serious person. This was Mark. Like, I had a serious adult's time. Mark was 10 years older than me. He had a lot of life experience. He went to 2 brag-worthy schools. He had degrees. And he believed in me, and he helped me run a political campaign against an Italian on the Hill. That's I mean, generally falls into the category of unwinnable races, but damn, we tried, and we scared the hell out of them. And we did some great stuff. And when it came down to the end of the campaign, I had about, I don't know, $1,800 or something left over in campaign funds. And I had 2 guys that really helped me out, Mark and Phil Cristofanelli, and they both really dug it out for me and did so much. And I'm like, guys, I can only give you, $800 a piece or whatever it was, and it was just like a horribly small sum, I had $200 left to my name, it was all I had to give, but I have never fully repaid Mark for everything he did for me. And I think that goes for a lot of us out here. If he ever worked on your campaign, or if he ever did anything for you, we got an incredible, value out of Mark. Like, you don't get people like Mark to come and put the time and devotion into things that Mark does. Like, normally people like Mark are they're a CEO of a Fortune 500 company, or they're on a yacht somewhere. And like, with this dude's ability and with his focus and his dedication, he decided to use it for the common good, and he decided to use it for the betterment of the people. I had when Mark had a breakup, he asked me, he said, hey, I know you bought this big house, do you have a spot in it for me? I'm like, oh yeah, I've got it, but it's not built yet. And Mark gave me a sum of money to build out this artist loft. And I built out a spot for Mark to live, and I had enough money to build a set of steps to this 2-story apartment, but I didn't have enough money to build a handrail. And Mark was afraid of heights. And so Mark comes to me white-faced one day, and he says, would you please, can you just give me a handrail to go up and down these stairs? And he told me a story of when he was at West Point, and he was in some kind of climbing tower, and they had to go up to the top. They had to climb a rope or something to the top of this tower, and he couldn't get down. So I built him this handrail. And even while I was building out this apartment, Mark was living in, this is about the dignity of Mark Kustelski. And no matter how full his car was of stuff, and how disheveled his hair was, and how wrinkled his clothes were, Mark was a serious person. And if you ever didn't treat Mark like a serious person, he would let you know, and he would tell you to fuck off, and he would quit. And Mark was a terrible thing to lose. And I want to wrap this up by saying, I will, in my life going forward, just like Mark, when I'm being treated badly, I'm going to think of how he would react to not being respected and not having someone recognize what he was bringing. And like Mark, I'm not going to tolerate any bullshit. And I'm going to do everything with my whole heart, 100%. I'm only going to pick things I believe in. I'm not doing it about the money. And if I'm ever not being treated well, it's time to tell everybody to fuck off. And Mark, thank you, Mark, for teaching me how to say no. You were great at it, and it's one of the best things. It's one of the best skills anybody can learn. Bob, come on up. Bob Barker's going to come up next.
Thank you, Jesse. Holy cow! I didn't know he was that tall. Thank you, Jesse, for this. I met Mark about 8 years ago, give or take. I was doing events down here on Cherokee Street, and I liked Nebula, and I moved in. And I wasn't allowed to play my guitar until 5 o'clock. And so after hours, I'd go in with my dog and hang out. And there was Mark. And lo and behold, through time, we became friends. And stayed friends for years. I worked with him as some of the people who did trivia nights. I might have opened the door or loaded your car because he was doing that. And then Bruce's campaign, I was upstairs from the campaign. I'd see Mark down there at night sometimes, and I started putting tangerines on everyone's desk because everyone's living off of pizza, and we thank Francis for the pizzas, but they needed something other than pizza to do a campaign. But the one thing, Mark was a total genius, and I've only met very few of those. And there's a couple things, signs of genius. And when you do, Mark was going to say something that indicated he had just heard something of genius. He said something like, oh, okay. And then something of genius came out. So I'm going to go back to one of the most exciting nights of there are a lot of campaigns. By the way, I was the name tag guy on the campaigns. It's amazing because there are a lot of people that live across the street from someone. They meet them when they move in and they never know their name until they go to one of our campaigns and someone sticks a name tag on them, and then they become friends after the third party, best friends. So one thing, Mark's work and what he did, there are a lot of people who never met him, never will, never have, and don't even know him. But he influenced so many people through the people he worked with in the campaigns and the candidates. Bruce Franks changed those Republican legislators in Jefferson City. They never met a rap master. Bruce changed politics and changed how politics is done in this state. We need to change some more, obviously, but that's one thing. Corey's amazing. Corey spent the night at Larry Rice's, almost froze to death, and she brought that experience to Washington, D.C., where Mark helped Corey get in there, and she's influenced so many people. It's amazing. But there's one thing. Mark and I trained someone the night of Wesley's campaign. Matt Bell, I think he's still here somewhere. Hey, Matt. And Mark and I Mark wanted to party that night with Shannon. And I didn't want to look at the numbers, so Matt watched the numbers all night. And all three of us, Wesley, Mark, and I, we heard the whole campaign, you're not going to win that thing. And we knew we were going to win. And I knew I'd been electioneering all day with my dog at the reddest, whitest poll in all of St. Louis County. And so many people came up and said, I voted for you, Wesley, that I had a feeling we were going to win. But so Matt, he was in charge we put him in charge of following the numbers from Jefferson City. And Matt came up to me after several hours and said, I think we won the election. And I said, you think we won? Not the right answer. He says, no, it looks like we came up with a lot of good numbers here. Looks like? Tell me the news when you come up with he said, no, we won. I said, oh, that's good news. Well, Shannon and Mark were sitting drinking, and they were very toasted. And I said, we should tell Mark. So we walk over, Mark's in front of the restaurant, and I said, Mark, Matt has something to tell you. And Matt says to Mark, we won. Mark looks up, and he goes, okay. I guess we should tell Wesley. And the rest is history. Thank you.
Okay, I just want to say a few words, and I might ramble a little, so just bear with me. Just bear with me if I ramble. So the first time I saw Mark, he absolutely intrigued me. He was in the back of a U-Haul. We were helping our friend Mary move. And Mark was in the back of the U-Haul organizing all of the boxes and all of Mary's friends. And it was like a really ragtag group of people were lining up to hand Mark the boxes. And Mark was organizing them and telling people what to do. And he did such a great job of it that for most of the day, I thought Mark came with a truck. And when I found out he was one of us, it became my mission to make him calm down a bit and just get on my level. So I found a cigarette for him to take a smoke break. And I was like, dude, you need to take 10 minutes and calm down. And he was like, no, we got to do this. And I was like, and then I was just honest with him. And I was like, man, you're working so hard, it's making me feel like a loser. So I need you to just like smoke the cigarette with me and just calm down for like 5-10 minutes. He takes a 2-minute break, gets back to work, and then I look at him and I'm like, you're the worst break taker ever. We became friends from that moment. And how that turned into an 8-day first date a couple months later, I don't really know, but it had something to do with we were driving around with our friend Mary and singing Driving and Crying Straight to Hell at the top of our lungs. And not just a lyric or a verse, but we sang the whole damn song all the way through, and Mary kept asking us to stop, and we're like, no. And we just kept singing. And we were just both very excited to meet somebody who knew the song and just loved to sing it. So I'm gonna miss Mark a lot. Everybody knows his political organizing. Everybody knows he was a great entrepreneur. His ability to strategize was amazing. And I'm really gonna miss that. I'm gonna miss him stomping around the house as much as I hated him stomping around the house. I'm gonna miss him talking to himself as much as I hated him talking to himself. I'm going to miss the way that he would come out with his hair totally slicked back out of the shower, just completely straight. And then he would leave and like think about something for like 10 minutes and then come back and it would be all frazzled. And I would be like, you have an idea about something. And you could totally tell you could tell when Mark was doing something brilliant because his hair would get wilder and wilder the more ideas he had. I'm totally gonna miss him. We would take road trips and we would stop and read. We had to read every historical marker. And you couldn't just see it. You had to read all of it. We would stop and look and compare scenic views, which one was better. Sometimes he liked to take road trips just to go look at the Mississippi River. We lived a mile and a half from the Mississippi River, but it was just different views of the Mississippi River. One time we decided to just take a road trip and see the Mississippi River as far as we could. And we ended up driving all night and ended up in Mount Rushmore. We get to Mount Rushmore and it's closed. We had gotten there an hour before it opened And so we had to figure that out for a moment. And so I'm just gonna miss those like crazy stuff. Like we were both the same except opposite. Like he was really good with numbers and I was really good with words, and he just kind of put it together and you have something. But I love them so much, and they're like, even when we were mad at each other, we were there for each other. There was one time that he made me so angry, and he was working on a campaign and he was kind of upset with a candidate. And Jesse talks about he fired that candidate. Mark fired all of his candidates at one point. You're clapping because you know. You've been in the room at that moment where Mark's like, I'm out. So he was mad at the candidate and he's yelling at me because he doesn't want to yell at the candidate. And I'm like, I'm leaving the house because you're yelling at me and I can't stand it. And I'm gonna go watch a movie. And then Mark yells back at me and he's like, that makes a lot of sense. So that makes me madder because I'm like, oh my God. But I love him so much, and I would love his eyes and his crazy hair, and when he had a beard, when he didn't have a beard. The way he loved bright clothing, which was always surprising to me. And just the way he'd make silly songs for our cats. And, I fed those cats every day for 17 years, twice a day, and took care of them. And he cooked them chicken one night, and he's their hero now. I just absolutely love that guy. Don't know what I'm going to do without him, but I will, and because he would tell me to. But we were always there for each other, and even when we were mad at each other, all we had to say was, I just need you to do this, and we would do it. And all I had to say was, Mark, I know you're mad at me, but I need you to be at this place for me. And he would just show up, or he would just do it, or he would just say it, or he would just do whatever I asked. He gave me everything I ever wanted. He gave St. Louis all he could. And he did it all just to make the world better. And that was the greatest thing about him, is he just wanted to make the world better. Thank you.
Guys, I want to thank everybody for hanging out tonight. I figured after we played a couple songs, everybody would scatter.
Oh no, but there's still plenty of talking about Mark to do. I see some pictures.
Hi, my name is Natalie Vowell. I think I'm the first 78th District candidate that Mark ran. And I was pretty nervous to get up here because I guess I just learned, like many other people, Mark fucking fired me. 3 months into my campaign, he's telling me, you gotta knock on all these doors, you gotta make all these phone banking things. No, I'm gonna go talk to my neighbors, and I know that they feel the same way that I do. We've got a corrupt state representative. This is 2014, 13 actually, before Bruce came along, and I was like, look, I knocked on 20 doors today, and Mark goes, no, that's not enough. You're not phone banking. Do you have any strategy at all? And I was like, no, that's what you're here for. Tell me what to do. And like Jesse, I did what I could, but I didn't do it. Mark fired me, and he basically told me to fuck off. And instead of taking that as an insult, Mark hung out and he watched how the campaign went, and I took that as a criticism to get better. As a candidate, as someone who wanted to do something for St. Louis, and Mark Kustelski was one of the few people who believed that St. Louis City did not have to fucking suck. St. Louis City could get better, and it did not have to be this candidate or that candidate. It could be this policy or that policy, and he didn't just work on candidates. He worked on policies, he worked on resolutions and campaigns. And that was one of the things I learned from Mark, was that not everything has to be in the hands of candidates and electoral politics. There's a lot of activism work behind that. So a couple years later, I ran for school board, and I lost by 3%. And I thought, shit, if only Mark Kustelski could have run my campaign, we probably could have won. We were this close, this close. And I ran again, and I won, and I just recently won a re-election without Mark, and with his silent and quiet and cheering support, but he was not running my campaign. But like Jesse said, when he came on at the beginning, he did not want to just kind of run some data. He didn't want to do walk lists. He would accept nothing less than campaign manager. And when I could not be a candidate that he could manage, he did not want to be the campaign manager. So Mark, seeing this long-term vision of what St. Louis City could be, he worked with people on all different areas of local, national, and statewide politics. And being told no by Mark Kustelski was like a challenge to say, you're gonna do this or you're not worth shit. So I did it, and I don't think I could have had Mark Kustelski not fired me. So thank you, Mark. Thank you, Mark, for getting me to get my shit together to be a serious candidate. And he told me when I didn't believe in myself that he couldn't believe in me. So that meant something. And here we are. So thank you, Mark, and thank you for all the people that you have helped bring together to bring electoral change, policy change to St. Louis City. St. Louis City doesn't have to suck. And thank you, Mark, for making it better.
He says, is that your brother in Fox? And I said, yes, thank you, Mary Ray. He's a beautiful man and I love you.
I was like, man, I didn't even talk to that dude because he was in Crocs.
Hi, my name's Tony. I'm an ASBE Buddhist. So, first off, I have the displeasure of saying Mark never fired me, and that sucks. It really sucks when you know what he did for us, for the city, for others. I'd like to follow on something that Shana said well, I'd like to do something for Shana, and that is to ask all of you, when you can, with money and time, look out for her as Mark looked out for us in the city. So I'll say that to start. So it was right over there where the flowers are, sitting with Dan Gunter, Hassinger, Dylan, I can't even remember, it might have been Brian Walsh, third guy, and Bruce. And Bruce, this guy is sitting across from me. I've never seen him before. He's got tattoos of tears below his eyes, and he's intense and alive. And he's announcing that he wants to run. He was inspired by Kara Spencer, who's also here. And I said, cool, we'll call this campaign Four Honkies and Bruce. And then Mark took on that campaign 3 fucking times. First, he ran to get Bruce to win, and I was going through PTSD from an abusive relationship, but I think we won, or no, we lost, and the guy cheated. Then there was the lawsuit, and then there was a second election, and Mark worked on all of those. He didn't always get enough money, but he worked hard on that. I worked on his campaign with Hamacher, and I've worked on every one of Corey's campaigns, but with Mark. And then he worked on Wesley's campaign, and the reason I bring that up is that man's making change, and he worked really hard. And as you guys know, well, Mark was a genius. He was funny, he was adroit, and he had a thirst, which I may have been seen to have once. And he had one, but he was the most sober-minded guy I knew, and he demanded respect and hard work, and he got it. I was just asked to speak, and I'm glad to do this on his behalf. I'm just sad, and I was shocked to hear he departed the soul cage, and I'm sorry, along with all of you. We were discussing inside just being here is important because you're sharing the energy. You're sharing the energy with Shana and all the other people here morning. So I thank you for that. I'm just going to borrow a quote of Mark's and give it back to him. So I was at a tree planting in Fairgrounds, a challenge area of the city. I've planted there 3 or 4 times. We've planted there 3 or 4 times. Mark was there. And Sergio Haro, who worked on Bernie with us, was there. He's talking to Mark, and he's like, well, who started all this? And then Mark goes, well, I mean, you could kind of think that Tony Brescia is the godfather of the progressive movement. And I'm going to finish with this. No, Mark, fuck that. You're fired. You're the father of the progressive movement in the city. That's your moniker. Thank you for existing. Thank you for your work, and thank you all for coming. Peace.
Talking about Mark today. I see some pictures that are being projected up here. There are various pictures of Mark, if you care to look at them.
I'm a little shorter than everyone, huh? Hello. So I'm Mark's youngest cousin. My name is Kate. Hello. It's been very interesting, mind-blowing even, to hear about all of his successes and relationships and all these different things he's done for social justice, and just his availability to help and try to create change within a city that I've only visited a few times. I know him as a really cute older cousin who named my sister's teddy bear. He was just so kind and so good. And there was a lot less F-bombs then. We all say fuck a lot now, but I was like 10, so we can't, fuck that, let's continue. But he was sweet to us. He always was just really good to me and my sisters, and just super kind and super present when he was around. We had family get-togethers, and Cathrine, his sister, had asked me to come down and for support and just to hang out in solidarity for the life, love, and respect of who he is, who he was, and what he's done. And I feel very honored that she asked me to come here, and I am so just happy that there's all of these people here to honor this man's life in a way I didn't even know. So I'm so glad I got to be here, and so glad that everyone else is here for all these different reasons to know why this man was so important to you, and apparently this kick-ass city that doesn't have to suck. So, thank you.
Hello, Christine Chesler here. You have no idea who I am, and that's okay. Mark's cousin from Minnesota. So, thank you very much. Mark, when I heard that he died, I said, fuck, a good one died. So, he helped me become who I am. His family, my family, not that great. The great ones are right there. So, he didn't put up with bullshit in family either. He didn't tolerate the bullshit, and he taught me that, and I'm grateful. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, I'm so grateful that y'all are here. My name is Cathrine Kustelski. I'm Mark's sister. I've loved him from the beginning. Christine, my cousin who just spoke, she's like, when's the first time you met Mark? I'm like, I can't say I remember. I'm gonna read a few remarks from people that Mark knew. First, from Ryan Hudak, who is Mark's roommate at West Point, his best friend there. And I've met Ryan many times. He's awesome. We've talked this past week. He says, I met Mark at West Point, and we were nearly inseparable during our years at the academy and for many years after. He made a huge impact on my life in many ways over many years. He pushed my thinking on everything from politics to religion to music to social justice. I learned as much from Mark at a pool table over a pitcher of beer as I did in any of my formal education. We were fortunate to travel the country and the world as young men to experience diverse cultures across the planet. At every turn, Mark taught me something new, and we had a blast doing it. Mark, you were a great friend and a great person who had a positive impact in this world. I'm forever grateful for your friendship and the memories that we made together. We love you. Be thou at peace. Ryan Hudak. I didn't know what I was going to say today. I've just really am flying by the seat of my pants. My band's playing. I didn't bring any, whatever. I want to thank y'all for being here, because y'all being here is exactly the kind of memorial that Mark wants. This is the best thing that y'all could be doing, is being together. Somebody, when I announced about Mark that he had passed, they said, may the company of those who loved him, may they comfort each other. And this is exactly what Mark would have wanted, is for all of us to be here tonight, just talking and laughing and cursing him in all of our ways. I mean, he's awesome, Mark. Christine and Katie, my two cousins, they came to St. Louis here, and we were putting together the picture boards that I encourage you to look at. One of the things that Mark was really excited about in his life was running with the Bulls in Pamplona. So there's his written account of running with the Bulls, and also some pictures from that event. So it's a pretty exciting thing. He's really funny. I also ran across this email to my brother, and I just thought it was ridiculous, and I thought y'all should know about it. He says, and this is just like a normal letter from Mark. Dear my baby fresh baby, what up? How many jobs in the civilian world have a bottom line? I don't think the Army has one job in the whole place with a bottom line. It is annoying. Do you have any plans of going to B school, business school? Does the Pope wear a big funny hat? Why does water run down a hill? How tight exactly is a pinhead? How do I get to be so good looking? Is it possible that anyone will ever be as good looking as myself? Is it true that there's nothing wrong if you want to do the butt all night long? That last one is better if you sing it. Sitting here comfortably, Mark. Anyway, and so here, this is me sharing my brother Mark with you, So we've been in contact with Shana this past week. I've been going over to her house a few days. I've been collecting Mark's things, all of Mark's things, which would fit into my Honda Fit one trip. He had about 3 baskets of laundry. He had a few bins of political memorabilia of the campaigns that he had worked on, canceled checks, a small stash of baby pictures, some letters from friends, Milland, Afshin, Guy, other friends that he has had as he was moving forward in his life. And a stack of notebooks. Mark left me, my inheritance is a stack of notebooks with all of his ideas in them. And this is one of the pages from these unmarked notebooks. And he was applying for a job that he wanted. And it says, what is your weakness? He wrote all this out. And I just thought, I want to share this with you. Polite and appropriate. He says, framework, I do this, which is good. It can lead to this, which is bad. So I resolve it this way with an action. I have high standards. He says, I have high standards and I expect excellent performance. There have been times that this has caused friction with others. The way that I attempt to handle this is to view it as an opportunity to improve communication with this person. Yeah. I'm like, damn, I mean, Mark, you're still teaching me. Thank you for how to be a human being, for teaching me how to be a human being in the world. I'm wearing this ring tonight. It's a West Point ring. It's not Mark's. Apparently West Point has this organization that if you lose a West Point ring and you tell them that you lost it, they're going to be on the lookout for you. They're going to give you money to buy West Point rings and send it back to the person who lost it. This is a West Point ring. This is not Mark's. Shana's aunt was cleaning up, and she's like, "Is this Mark's ring?" And she's like, "No, not Mark's ring." Let me see. What other things can I tell you about Mark? The most important thing of all the things, Mart, of all the things. So Mark had gone in the Army. He'd gone to business school. He'd gotten out, and he didn't know what to do. Shana says I saved him at this point. I don't know if that's the truth. But he's like, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, Mark, come to St. Louis. I was like, St. Louis needs you. I've never spoken for a city before. But I was like, St. Louis needs you. And he came here. And here we are, loving my brother Mark. I'm delighted that he took me up on this opportunity. And here we are, just continuing to love him. Thank you all for loving him today. I don't think I have anything else to say other than if you loved Mark, please contact me at any time. I'll give you my number. We'll talk about Mark anytime. Thank you. I love you all as he loved you all. Let's love like Mark loved.
Hi everyone, I'm Lisa. What can I say about Mark that hasn't been said? So I'll tell you how we met. We had been in Ferguson together organizing, trying to figure out how to organize protests and organize people. And we realized that there was a bunch of people from South City there, and maybe we should organize ourselves. And so we got a bunch of email addresses together and thought we'd get some people together and called a meeting at Mokabee's, and I showed up late and there were already 50 people there waiting for us to tell them what to do. And I had no idea what I was doing, but I'd been a teacher, and so we kind of like organized into some groups and did some stuff. And afterwards, Mark, seeing that I had no idea what I was doing, came up to me and said, "Hey, I have a little bit of experience with organizing people, maybe I could help." And I said, "Yes, please." And that is the history of mine and Mark's relationship. Him believing that I could do something and saying, "I'm gonna be right here to help you make this happen." And that is what he did for a lot of us. I believe you can do this, and I'm gonna be here to make it happen. Now I'm gonna call you on your bullshit. I'm gonna call you on when you are messing up or when you're saying or doing something that I disagree with. I'm gonna call you, but I'm gonna do it to your face. I'm gonna tell you to your face, "I don't like this. This isn't right. This isn't what you said." And that's the most that I can hope for in a person and a friend. I'm not very good at friendships in some ways. I'm really good at working with people. And Mark and I worked together a lot. There were a lot of harebrained schemes that we came up with to try to make progressive politics in St. Louis more functional and better, and we did some amazing things together. We had a PAC together. We started businesses together. Probably Mark was who inspired me to be an entrepreneur in some sense. But we developed this intimacy of showing up. Sometimes it would be a few months that we hadn't seen each other, and then one of us would come up with an idea, and we'd contact the other one and say, "Hey, what do you think about this? Can we do this?" And we said, "Okay, yeah, we'll come up with some sort of strategy or scheme to try to make this happen." My kid wants the mic, apparently. I was never a candidate for Mark. Mark and I never officially fired each other. There were definitely times when we went months without talking to each other because we got into a fight about something. He was a difficult person to deal with sometimes. Anybody who loved him knew that. He was convinced that he was right. Somehow always willing to learn on top of that. It's an amazing tension to keep. Something very human. On the other hand, there is a handful of people that we get to experience in this life who are brighter than and bigger than this world is capable of understanding. And Mark Kustelski is definitely one of those people whose light was not understood or respected in his own time. A prophet who was not seen in his own hometown. somebody who we all appreciated, but somehow never got paid for the amazing work that he did. Again, he never got paid for the work that he did. Y'all put some money in for Shana in this because Shana needs that money. Because Mark never got paid for the work that he did, y'all. He was my friend. And I will miss him mightily. And I am so happy that we can be here together and that he brought us together in this way tonight, because he would love that. And he would be here with disheveled hair and a dirty shirt and his Crocs on. And when that band plays, he'd be dancing with us. So y'all better dance for Mark. Love you all.
Hi, my name is Lucas. Do want to preface this by saying I'm not a super great public speaker. Mark told me that, and he tried to get me to work for him to do trivia to learn how to do it better. So I do want to just note that before I go any further. Mark and I met, we were introduced by Stuart Keating, one of the owners of Earthbound, right there. We worked on a campaign that, a thing that I just couldn't help but notice, but like actually divided a lot of the people that are here today. There's a lot of us that were in that campaign on different sides of that. And it was a pretty bitter campaign. Like, I think we can all admit that. And in that campaign, I was a burnt out. I had just come off working for a national progressive organizing network, and I was just burnt out. I was on the other side of a divorce. And Mark was Mark. Mark was a idiosyncratic, just really interesting guy that really pushed me in some ways, and I pushed him too. He really did not like entering data into Van. And I told him that, like, once he finally got it, that, like, you know, and he's like, yeah, I'm going to teach other people this and stuff. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to take credit for all that. So I just put that as a note. So, like, every time he or I were trying to think through, like, what our next things that we were going to do, or, like, whatnot would be, that we'd meet up and we'd talk, a lot of times over at Venice. And that's where I saw him last, and he was like trying to think through what his next thing was. He was frankly very angry at the Missouri Democratic Party at the time, which then like just keeps making me think about like how, you know, until we did that he'd worked for some pretty idiosyncratic candidates between Jesse and Stephen, folks that I love. Well, it was just idiosyncratic. And I remember, I really don't remember how this happened, but I remember he was in my car and he's like, Lucas, I'm thinking about going and working for Democrats. And he really had this, like, it was just this, like, real thing. He's like, I haven't only told Shana this. I don't know. I think, I was like, I encouraged him, and then he introduced me to Bruce and brought me to Bruce's first fundraiser and was like, Bruce, and I asked Bruce this, like, thing of, like, how can you win? How can you beat them? And he's like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. It was great. But the long thing is like, I don't think I'd be doing this work now if it wasn't for that experience, for doing that. And I'll always thank Mark for that. And that's that.
Hello, I'm Uncle Joe, Shana's Uncle Joe. I thought I'd represent the Record family. I knew Mark from a totally different angle than you guys did. I appreciate all your political activism, and it's a wonderful thing. I never knew Mark was a West Pointer. I knew that Mark was into politics. I knew he ran political campaigns. I knew he was a ball buster. But to me, he was a cook. He'd come over, we'd have 25 people for Thanksgiving, and he'd come over and say, I'm gonna make 2 turkeys. So he was always a cook for us. He would come over, his hair was messed up, as it always was. He looked like a slob, but Shana loved him, I loved him. We all loved him. He was a good guy, and the only thing different from everybody else, no one has given a toast. So I'd like to give a toast to Mark and Mark's smile, because it's the best smile I have ever seen in my life. To Mark and his smile. Cheers. Thank you.
Hello. I just went over to tell Jesse a little story, and then he says, you got to go up and talk to everybody. So, but most important, appreciate what Jesse Irwin's doing to bring this together and to honor Mark's memory. I just was letting him know that Mark Kustelski was actually my campaign manager for 3 days. The details of what the campaign, it doesn't matter. It's past history. The logic was sound, but he never fired me. But I learned a lot. I mean, I just thought I needed the best, and I saw what he's done. And I mean, he did not just work for anybody. This might have been the last time he even was willing to get involved, because it's very difficult, and the whole thing is difficult. But just those few days, just going over what needs to be done, he knew what he was doing. He knew what he was doing. He expected people to work, and had a chance, I'm glad, to just talk about more broader issues of what's going on. He wasn't just a tactician. He thought very deeply about the situations in the broader world, and we're gonna miss a lot. His insight and just being here with us. It's difficult that he's gone, but that's all I got to say. Just want to thank Jesse again for getting this together, and we love you, Mark.
All right. Good evening, friends and family. My name is Martin Plumley, and I've known Mark Kustelski for about 35 years. I had the pleasure of going to Hillwood High School in Nashville with Mark. Somehow, some way, we both matriculated to the U.S. Military Academy at West Point, and even more of a miracle, managed to graduate in May of 1994. It is humbling to think of a man that lived well, lived hard, loved hard, and man, this guy had passion, and I respect that, and we'll miss that. I last spoke to Mark December of 20, and I'll say this, it wasn't the most friendly conversation. It was a healthy debate, we'll say that, fair enough? But what I love about Mark is he was very analytical, right? And I sent him some documents, and by God, he read them, and he gave me feedback. And so we continued the debate a couple nights later. So as we honor him today and forevermore, may we just remember what he was about. He loved well, he loved hard, and he taught me some lessons. Although we didn't stay in great contact over the years, I talked to his younger brother today, Danielle, on the way up. I left a message for Joe a few days ago and connected with Cathrine yesterday on the phone. So it really is humbling to be here. Thank you for honoring him and his family, his legacy. Please don't forget Mark. I know he's humbled to have you all here. And if you ever want to hear some other Mark stories, especially West Point Army stories, we've got the yearbook. It's called The Howitzer. So if you want to see Mark as a cadet, there's some funny pictures. I believe it's set up on the tables back there. So please check that out. I brought that with me from Franklin, just south of Nashville, where I live. And God bless you all, and thanks for hosting. And by the way, beat Navy. Beat Navy.